Ooh, there's this thought that came to my mind. When are you going to get to the good part? Time to talk about the dogs. Man, oh man. I was saying to somebody a couple of days ago, it's really exciting to be this close to the SEC championship game, Maria, because, okay, let's just be real. We all got a collective letdown last month when the Braves didn't do what we thought they would do to get to October, right? And, the Hawks, well, they're just starting. So we're going to give them an opportunity to do a bit better. But really, right now, everything's hinging on the hopes, dreams, and aspirations of Atlanta Metro are hinging on what the Georgia Bulldogs do in this SEC championship game that could, or depending on who you are, could not possibly get them into position for their third straight title. Now, the first question is this. I don't think that Georgia necessarily needs to make up motivation, Maria, but I'm just going to ask you, can Georgia finally beat Alabama in Atlanta for this SEC crown? And do you think that is maybe, even if it's subconsciously, motivation for them going into this game Saturday?
Look, I think it's going to be a really difficult game for Georgia to win. I know the Dogs fans are going to hate when I say that. I just don't think it's a cakewalk like a lot of people do believe. Maybe that's because I've covered Nick Saban before. Maybe that's because I covered Alabama for so long. And maybe it's because I've watched the evolution of this Alabama team throughout the season. And I would have rather played the Alabama team at the beginning of the year. They are playing their best football. They are one of the best teams in the country right now. I know they're not ranked as high as Georgia, not even close. They were the 8th ranked team in the country. But I think this is such a terrifying matchup for the Bulldogs. That being said, I do think Georgia wins this game, but I think they're going to give us an epic classic. Nick Saban, he's 7-0 at Mercedes Benz Stadium. He is undefeated in that building. There is something to be said about that. And honestly, going back to the Iron Bowl from last week, I would have been a lot more concerned for Georgia had Alabama lost that game. Now that they're coming off a win, I feel a little bit better about it. And I don't think that, and Kirby will tell you, we don't go off of motivation, blah, blah, blah. I think subconsciously the players do. It sucks to lose to Alabama every year. And the last time that they even lost a football game back in 2021 was to who? Oh, it was to Alabama. And it was right here in Atlanta. They don't want that to be the narrative. They don't want that to continue. And keep in mind, this is a really tricky college football playoff picture, right? So in my mind, and in my opinion, I can make an argument for Georgia to get in, shall they lose to Alabama if it's a close game. The problem with that, though, is there's so many undefeated teams still standing, and a lot of those could be conference champions at the end of the weekend. It kind of pushes Georgia out if they lose this game. If you're the Bulldogs, you've got to win. In the back of their mind, I don't care what you tell me, they have to be saying, we cannot lose to Nick Saban again. This sucks. He's won 12 straight in the city of Atlanta. I mean, come on. Why is he dominating this city? He is one of the best ever in college football. But right now, Kirby Smart has an unbelievable opportunity to say, wait a second, I want my name in the history books too. Thanks a lot to my old boss. Have a great day. We're SEC champs. And I think they can do that. It's going to be a tough game, though. I expect it to be an unbelievable matchup on Saturday.
Yeah, and I would say, too, I think each class probably comes in with a pseudo chip on their shoulder, right? So the class last year had to hear the entire season that they had to hear about, oh, wait a minute, that team before us, they didn't lose a game. So we're going to go undefeated. So that was their one-up on the team that before. This team is undefeated. So now you're on par with the team from last year. But Jarvis, they've also been hearing, you're not that world-class all-beater defense of a lifetime. So what's your distinction? The distinction is we go into Mercedes Benz Stadium and we give Alabama an L. That's our distinction. So as we talked about, I mentioned it, the subconscious piece. Maria mentioned the subconscious piece. Athletes, competitors, you always have to have some edge. There's something that you want to give yourself to say, yeah, this is what I want. I think that could be a motivating factor as well, because each one of these Kirby Smart championships, I think each team wants to say, but this is what my team did that your team didn't do.
Yeah, I think the motivating factor is that this is the culture that Kirby Smart has established. Because we talked about, as this season has gone along, how, okay, now they got to be able to do this in this game. Yes. Or they're going to have to go without the best player in the country in Brock Bowers. How does the offense is going to adjust? Or Kirby Smart hired his homeboy to be the offensive coordinator in Mike Bobo. How does the offense going to live up to Todd Monken and his greatness and what he did and able to establish and bring in Georgia another national championship? Or so I think every question that we've had throughout this year, Georgia has answered.
Yeah.
Kirby Smart has his guys prepared to answer those questions.
Yeah.
So as they've been going on this crescendo, it is just so hard for me that Nick Saban is going to get in the way of that. I know that may sound crazy, but what Kirby Smart has been doing, what this coaching staff has been doing, and Glenn Schumann and Will Muschamp and all those guys, just this staff as a whole, it is just they've been done an excellent job because they've gotten every team best shot. Like team come out swinging, punch them in the mouth in that first couple series, and then next thing you know, you don't hear anything else from them because they made the necessary adjustments and they've moved on and they end up winning the game. So yeah. So it's just so many things that has my eyes have seen this year to go in this game and say, yeah, motivation is cool. I get it. You know, Daniel's son wants to beat Mr. Miyagi. I get it. But I'm telling you, Kirby Smart has prepared his guys for this.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that they're going to be ready. And I'm not guaranteeing a win. I'm not saying double-digit win and everything like that. But I would not be shocked if the Georgia Bulldogs go out there and take care of business on Saturday at Mercedes Benz.
Indeed. And I think there are a couple other things there as well. There's so much that's been made about Jalen Milroe and how much he's progressed and how he's not that guy, to your point, Maria, who took the L against Texas. But low key, Carson Beck has been on the upswing as well. He's trended up week after week after week. He's gotten better and better and better. And I think sometimes getting lost in the conversation or the shuffle of the Jalen combo has been not as much Carson combo. And granted, I get it, because that's really their one and almost only weapon, if you take away a couple of others, of course, being a little bit loose with that. But ultimately speaking, I think that Carson Beck has to have just a solid game, and the Dogs will be fine. I think Jalen Milroe has to have pretty much the game of his life. Like, he's got to be that guy over and over and over again for Alabama to do this. And one more thing before we go on, I was thinking about this as well. Kirby Smart plays chess, not checkers. Nick Saban plays chess, not checkers. But I really do believe that Kirby Smart has more chess pieces that are able to execute his chess match versus the pieces that Nick Saban has to potentially execute his. And that could be the difference maker as well. Now, one more thing, Maria, I'm going back to this before we wrap up because you kind of mentioned it. And I saw this headline earlier this week and I said, man, this is hilarious to me, because it's kind of like that big brother, little brother thing kind of rearing its head. And the headline was, quote, Georgia can't get away from the boogeyman, of course, referring to Alabama. But I don't know. I don't feel like they're spooked by Bama anymore. You?
No, I mean, I don't. I mean, maybe earlier in Kirby's career, I would have thought that, but I kind of going back to what Jarvis has said, they've proven time and time again that they are the best team in college football, and they have been this year. And there's been so many times where people have tried to make an argument that Georgia is not. Those weeks that we talked about them not at number one, which we all disagreed should not have been the case, but it was. You know, time and time again, Kirby has proved that he is one of the best coaches in the country, and he will go down as one of the best college coaches ever because he is at the top at a time where college football is changing at its most. Yeah. And it's crazy because we're not talking about, Carson Beck. Like, Carson Beck's a really good quarterback, to your point. And I think that this is actually the year that they can get past the boogeyman, because for this Alabama team, and I've covered some that have some of the most prolific offenses and defenses. I mean, I covered the Tua Tagovailoa days, all of that. And those were some of the best teams we've ever seen in college football. And Georgia's had some of those as well in recent history that I've been lucky enough to cover as well. But for Alabama, this team is not as disciplined as some of the past for Nick Saban. Georgia can take advantage of that, and they can take advantage of that very quickly. Carson Beck, give me some explosive plays. He's 75% on his passing, which is incredibly accurate. It's not talked about enough, but the explosive plays have been what's missing for Carson. He hasn't necessarily needed to do that. What's funny is there's been a couple times where Kirby's talked about Carson, said, I've seen this from day one. He loves Carson, by the way. That's his guy. He said, I've seen this from day one. You know, he's a good quarterback. But we haven't had to have him do a whole lot. Very fascinating. So what you're seeing from Carson is maybe not his full potential. You may get that on Saturday if they put him in a situation to make him do that. I just don't think it's going to get to that point. However, I do think that this is one of the more beatable Alabama teams, even though I'm saying they're so good, they're way better than they were at the beginning of the year. This is maybe one of the more beatable teams that Nick Saban has had. That's not saying they're not good. Don't get it twisted. They're incredible. But I think Georgia, like you said, Tanisha, they have a lot more pieces. They've proven Georgia Tech. They were out a ton of their top guys on offense. Who cares? They still won the football game. It doesn't matter. They're proving week in and week out. Doesn't matter if there's guys out. Georgia's going to win. I still think it's going to be an epic, like down to the finish thing in Mercedes Benz Stadium, which we've seen a couple of those between these two teams. But Georgia's just, I think Kirby's cool, calm, and collected. He's ready. He's not really thinking, oh, that's my old boss. I can't, whatever. No, he has a ton of respect for Nick. He says that all the time. But I don't think it's the guy on his shoulder that he's still trying to beat. I just think he's ready and he's ready to go.
I think so too. And yeah, I think if we see an Alabama win, I think that'll be down to the wire. But Georgia, to me, they get their dub however they get their dub. It could be a down to the wire, but I can see Georgia smoking them too. Like, I wouldn't be shocked about that as well, just because, like we said, Carson Beck still has some things in the arsenal that we haven't seen. And that run game, all I'm going to say is 2 words before we tap out: Kendall Milton. All right, guys.
Running like somebody stole his puppy. He was running so angry. I was like, are you all right? Like, he's unbelievable. He's making
1,000%.
I am at 100% proud of Kendall. Yeah. You know, Kendall's a kid. I'm sorry. One more point. Kendall's a kid that's had to prove himself and that's had to wait and be patient, because Georgia's just had prolific running backs for forever. And Kendall is now showing that he's been the guy all along. He's been waiting in the wings. And I freaking love that. And one final point about Georgia's offense is I think this is one of the best we've seen under Kirby Smart. I really do. Collectively, offensively.
It's complete.
I'm so excited about that. We always talk about their defense, and because Kirby's a defensive guy and he's loaded them on the defensive side of the ball. Right. The offense is one of the best in the country, if not the best. They are crushing it at every level. That is something that's not talked about enough, and I'm excited to watch this particular matchup because of it.
Oh, yeah. This is going to be straight firepower, right?
Yes.
Straight.
Yeah, this Carson Beck has played himself into being a early round NFL prospect.
Yes. Agreed.
He went from unknown to early round NFL prospect within a matter of 12 games.
Yeah. Agreed. And it's the last time we've had a conversation about multiple Georgia offensive players that are going to be taken first round or early round. Usually that's a conversation about defense. So Maria, to your point, Jarvis, to your point, it's good to be able to talk about the offense because it's just as prolific and should be a part of the conversation of why they are where they are as well. Now we're going to go around the metro when we get back, but first Jarvis is going to tell you guys about Subtext.
Listen up, guys. Let me tell you about join subtext.com/LockedOnSportsAtlanta. Why I need to go there, Jarvis? Because if you want to become a Locked On Sports Atlanta insider, you need to go there right now. And guess what? It's a deal. It's 2-week free trial. If you like it, because you're going to be able to get some breaking news, you're going to be able to get my thoughts on the game. Also, all 22 breakdown. I sent you a little private video just for your viewing. No weird stuff. We just talking ball. That's all we're going to be doing. So, and it's going to be sent directly to your phone. So it's a 2-week trial. If you don't like it, that's cool. That's fine. You can get off and do whatever you need to do and go about your day. But if you do like it, it's only $4.99 a month. So go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnSportsAtlanta. Joinsubtext.com/LockedOnSportsAtlanta to become a Locked On Sports Atlanta insider today.